system and fix what doesn't work. That's one thing that I want to do that I think particularly will help small businesses. We also want to get back to having the Small Business Administration actually live up to its name. In the last 6.5 years, it has not fulfilled its mission. It has really been missing in action. When my husband was president, it worked very vigorously to help small businesses get information that they needed, get access to credit that they couldn't have otherwise. And we're going to do that again. With respect to the technology arena, there's a specific program in the federal government, the Technology Innovation Program, that targets small businesses to give them some help with research and development. Because sometimes you have a great idea, but you can't get anybody to give you the resources. You can't go to the bank and say, you know, I've got this great idea. Here's what I did my PhD on. I think I can make this into a product. And they'll say, well, what have you done? You say, well, I just got out of school. I'm ready to start. Well, where's your collateral? Well, I've got student loans. I don't have any collateral. Well, we want people with good ideas that are maybe not bankable ideas to have access to other sources of credit. Because we're letting a lot of good ideas die in the parking lots of banks. Too many small businesses can't get in the door, can't make the case for themselves. So we're going to do more to help small businesses get that foot in the door. But finally, the overall economy has to get lifted up in order to help small businesses survive and flourish. That means we've got to get back to fiscal responsibility. We had a balanced budget and a surplus 6.5 years ago. That has all been squandered. To be willing to make smart investments that help grow the economy again. You know, the Bush administration has had an opportunity to practice what it's always preached, and that is trickle-down economics. And it's just not trickling fast enough or far enough. We're seeing too many people who are being left out of the benefits that are going to the wealthiest of Americans. And we're seeing increasing inequality because of that. That's not the America that I grew up in. The America that I grew up in, everybody was moving up together. And you didn't have a two-tiered system like what is developing now. We have the greatest income inequality that we've had since the Great Depression. It's not a very good indicator. And so we've got to get back, and that's one of the reasons why yesterday I talked about what I would do to help retirement security. So many people have said to me, oh, they're small business people, they're self-employed, they're living from paycheck to paycheck. They can't save anything. Healthcare costs are up, energy costs are up, education costs are up. So I have proposed accounts that can be available to more people than currently can access them. You know, if you're well enough off or your employer participates, you might get access to a 401k or an RIA. But a lot of people can't afford that. They can't get started. And what we're going to do is provide some matching funds for people who aren't able to get started so that they can get into the habit of saving. If we can start saving again as a nation, and if our federal government can start being fiscally responsible again, we will start creating new jobs. We created 22 million of them in the 90s, and we can create millions of them again, and that'll help small business as well. I don't know, I think we can probably hear people. I don't see, are there microphones in the audience? Okay. I see, first hand I saw was this lady right there. Go ahead, here comes the microphone.
It was in regards to what you were just talking about. I read it in the paper this morning. And the way you want to do that is through the inheritance tax. Now, it's terrible that there are people that want to die in 2011. Yes. To save the little bit they might have made over $2.5 million by being a first-generation American citizen and doing exactly what this gentleman did. And now the government, after 2011, wants to take 55% of anything over $600,000 and something, which in this area is probably the average price of a nice house. I couldn't afford one, but so. And then it's already been taxed when you earn it. It's already been taxed when you made dividends and interest. It's already taxed, then it's taxed at your death, and God forbid it gets passed on to the next generation and they die with some of it, because then they're going to get taxed a fourth time. I just don't think that's the way to get this. Not everybody that does a 401k gets any matching, and what is it going to do for them?
Well, let me explain to you. Everything that I propose, I pay for. You know, because I believe that we've got to get back to fiscal responsibility, so I'm not going to go around New Hampshire or anywhere else and say, well, let's do this, let's spend money here on education, let's spend money here on healthcare, unless I can figure out how to pay for it. Because one of the ways we got to fiscal responsibility in the 90s is that we had rules in the Congress that my husband strongly supported, which said you can't raise taxes, raise spending, lower spending, unless you can figure out how all this fits into a balanced budget framework. And we had to have what are called pay-as-you-go rules. And I think those are what we should be following again. You know, people disagree about this, but the estate tax, which came into being by Republicans like Teddy Roosevelt and others, and has been part of our tax system for a very long time, is there for a real simple reason. In America, we've never liked the idea of massive inherited wealth. Now, you know, we can change our attitude about that, but I happen to share that. Part of the reason why America's always remained a meritocracy, where you have to work for what you get, where you have to get out there and make your case to people, come up with a good idea, is that we never had a class of people sitting on generation after generation after generation, huge inherited wealth. And it's one of the reasons why people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are against doing away with the estate tax. Because they made it. They made it on their own. So here's what I want to do. I want to raise the limit, and it's you can have an estate for a married couple of $7 million before you get taxed under my proposal. And so I think that's a pretty healthy estate to leave to your children. As Warren Buffett often likes to say, my kids didn't earn it, why should they get it all? You know? And historically, generationally, there's a lot of good argument for that. Because here's what I want to do with continuing to tax above the $7 million rate, is to help people who cannot save money. If you are making up to $60,000, the government will match with $1,000 your first $1,000 in savings. Because human psychology being what it is, more people will save if they think they'll get matched than if they won't. They will figure out a way to begin savings. And our savings crisis is so serious that we're going to wake up in 20 or 30 years if we're not careful, and we will have a whole generation of destitute Americans. And it won't be because they're all irresponsible and lazy, it's because they can't pay all of the costs because their incomes are not going up. When incomes used to go up, you could save a little. Incomes are stagnant for most people. I know it's hard to believe. If you look at the headlines, the stock market's going up and corporate profits are going up. But corporate profits are not being passed on as increased wages. That hasn't happened in decades. You know, usually if you make money in a corporation, you feel some obligation to share that with your employees. That's not happening now. So more and more Americans are actually working harder and harder and not getting ahead. So we're going to incentivize savings. We're also going to say that if you make between $60,000 and $100,000, we will put in $500 to match your first $1,000, a 50% match, not a 100% match. And then you've got to be on your own. We're going to make it easier for you to withhold. We're going to make it easier for you to have automatic enrollment in 401ks, or what this new option will be, the American Retirement Account. But I think Americans historically have proven to be quite responsible. But if you look at the wealth distribution in America today, it should cause any American, I don't care how wealthy you are, to be concerned about the future of this country. So we're going to have a plan that is added to Social Security. It has nothing to do with taking money out of Social Security. I'm 100% against privatizing Social Security. I thought that was a terrible idea.